Welcome to Lair the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, let's discuss Soundgarden's Badmotorfinger, the third studio album by Soundgarden, released in 1991. I made a video discussing my thoughts on grunge and how I really dug this album because this was my first Soundgarden album, because it was some really great heavy 70s style Sabbathy, dark, intense riffing on this record. This is just a riff fest album. It's got killer riffs. It's got killer singing from Chris Cornell on here. Man, oh man, one of the greatest metal singers of all time. And I know that, as I mentioned in my grunge video, when grunge came around, it sort of became this anti-metal thing, and Soundgarden gets put into the whole grunge scene because they were from Seattle. But for me, this is good, heavy riffing, metal riffing. Does it sound like Rat or Dawkins? Not in any way. To me, this is all about 70s Sabbath and that kind of down-tuned, grungy, heavy, distorted, grinding riffing, and Chris Cornell's soaring, aggressive, unique voice over the top. Kim Thayil's awesome riffing, like I just mentioned, on the guitar. Matt Cameron is this heavy drum style, and Ben Shepherd, who this would be his first studio album with the band. He's got an awesome distorted bass sound that just adds to the thickness of the whole thing. So this album was produced by Terry Date, and man, it sounds awesome. It has been a long time since I listened to this record. I was into this stuff when it first came out, and it's been a while since I've revisited this stuff. And when I did, I was like, whoa, I forgot how heavy this stuff was, how much great playing there was on this album, and how well produced it was. It is just super thick, lots of low end. The bass has a nice distorted sound to it that just makes it sound all the more thicker and heavier. And Soundgarden is a really cool band because they have sort of this sound that you can hear is coming from the 70s and influence from the 70s. Yet they have their own spin and twist on it. They have the heavy down-tuned guitars. Kim Thayil doesn't really solo like you would think in a traditional soloist like a Jimmy Page or something like that. He does have some moments here and there, but his solos are more like soundscape things, just more of an effect and adding to the heaviness and sound of the band. And the way he plays these down-tuned riffs where he'll have a heavy riff going on, and a lot of times there's another single note guitar thing where he's doing bends and just or holding out a note, or playing a single note really fast. It just adds to this swirling cacophony sometimes of guitar sounds that are going on. It's just really awesome. And the band, there's a lot of odd meter stuff on here. And what I mean by odd meter, if you're not a musician, most pop and rock music is in what's called 4/4 time. That's where the beat is just 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of thing. But with Soundgarden, there's a lot of odd meter stuff like bam, da, 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 ga, 5 stuff that's in 5, do, da, 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 ga, da. That's actually from their next record, that riff that I'm singing. But it's all over this record, and just weird odd meter things, riffs that take weird sudden jolting turns, but it all fits together and works really well. In a lot of ways, it's kind of progressive. The way the stuff that they do rhythmically here is there's a lot of complex rhythmic stuff going on here. So the album Starts with one of the big songs on here, Rusty Cage. They had a video for this at this time. This album was released, I think I said 1991, and it was released on the same day as Nevermind, and it was released a month after Pearl Jam's 10 album was released. So all these sort of, the grunge things sort of exploding all at the same time. And Rusty Cage was a video that you saw a lot on MTV. Starts off with that. Again, here's this Kim Thale, this like layered guitar thing, do 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 do, these like weird harmonies, and then that driving like riff, and I'm gonna break my rusty cage and run, and the part in the song where everything stops and boom, ball down, go down, down. Again, it's like syncopated, weird rhythmic thing, but it's so heavy, man. It's so crushing. I remember when I heard that, go back to my grunge video for my thoughts on when I first heard grunge. And to me, it was like, whoa, this is like heavy, crazy Sabbath riffing, but like slightly modernized, heavy modern tone. And with these odd meters and everything, it was just like, and that breakdown in that song, I just remember being floored by that. I was like, this is so heavy. And then when Chris Cornell sings that upper, when he's screaming up high like that, I was like, oh my goodness, man, I was blown away. I was floored, because you got to remember, man, on the radio at this time, it was stuff like, man, Firehouse and Trickster and Poison and ballads and Tesla doing acoustic things. And then this comes out and you're hearing these heavy down-tuned riffs, and I was like, it just blew my mind, man. Just awesome. Outshine, then, here was another popular one for them, had a big video, and this is kind of more of a laid back in the pocket, I got on again feeling, just sort of driving riff thing, really cool. Next, one of my favorites on this record, Slaves and Bulldozers. What an awesome, crazy song title. And I love Chris Cornell's delivery in this, man. This is, his vocals in this, the way he starts off in the verse, everything I had is what I need. All this time and burning, and now I know how you've been shaking. And when he goes up high into his screaming, now I know, it is like, whoa. I had forgotten what an absolutely incredible, amazing singer he was, and sadly, passed away not really that long ago. But man, oh my goodness, man, his vocals on this are so intense, and he has such a awesome, he's got like these three voices. He's got the lower range, the heavy, intense range. He's got that upper range that reminds me a little bit almost like of Rob Halford's range sometimes. And then he has that ungodly like scream, and man, he's all over it on this song, man. Just so cool. What a great, heavy, awesome vocal performance. Next, Jesus Christ Pose. Oh, going back to Slaves and Bulldozers, man. Like that riff from the guitar, and then boom, 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 again, it's like his riffs, they were so like quirky. Like there's heavy lowness, but then he's doing these high bends and just the weird noises and stuff. The way the song starts with the bass down super low and the feedbacky weird guitar noises. Just, man, great stuff. Next, Jesus Christ Pose has his evil driving riff, just chugging along, but it's like just really like aggressive. And this is another one where Chris Cornell's vocals are just amazing. I love when he sings in that certain part of his range. It's like up high in his range, but it's before he gets into his screaming voice. Will you stand at me? It's just, oh man, that is great. And it reminds me of the song Birth Ritual. If you've ever seen the movie Singles, if you haven't, go see it, because it's awesome. It's got a whole bunch of cameos from a bunch of the Seattle guys, and this was before the Seattle thing had exploded, so they were all, just up and coming bands at that point. And there's a clip of Soundgarden in there in a club doing Birth Ritual, and that is one of my favorite songs of all time. Oh man, the main riff in that is just absolutely killer. And that's a great example of an odd meter riff in Birth Ritual, where the main riff is like bom da 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 ba dee da bom da 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 ba dee da. So it's in 7, which is a really odd thing to hear in heavy metal. And oh man, Chris Cornell's vocal performance on that song is just out of this world. And apparently that was supposed to be included on this album, but and they gave it for the movie, and it got caught in some sort of legal thing where they couldn't put it on the record. But if that was on this album, I mean, already this incredibly heavy record just would have taken it to another level, because I love that song, Birth Ritual. Please look it up if you haven't heard it. It's absolutely incredible. And Jesus Christ Pose reminds me of the way Chris Cornell sings in this song, reminds me a lot of Birth Ritual. Then you have Face Pollution, which is a fast, kind of punky number. You know, this is maybe bring a little bit of that side of their sound, you know, but not like a sloppy punk. I've never been a fan of like messy, sloppy punk. This is just more of just like a really kind of over-the-top, aggressive song. Somewhere, it's got a really great catchy chorus, and again the way the chords move around and the accents and everything, it's just the rhythm behind the chorus, it's just great. But it's still so, the accents and rhythms are so quirky and weird, but it's still so catchy. The melody line is just great in it. Searching with My Good Eye Closed, it is a trippy kind of 70s one. This one was written by Ben Shepherd, who had just come into the band at this point. Most of the songs were written by Chris Cornell, although there's co-writes here and there, and the other guys get in on the rights, but this particular one is from Ben Shepherd. And then, you know, the rest of the album is really cool. It's maybe the last like 3 or 4 songs on the album maybe aren't as catchy and don't stand out to me quite as much as the first so many songs on this record. You've got Room 1,000 Years Wide, which is cool. Mind Riot is a cool kind of aggressive one. Drawing Flies is pretty cool. I like the chorus in that one. Holy Water, New Damage. You know, the album maybe could have... This was in the era when CDs were really popular, and I don't even know if this was released on vinyl when it first came out. I think it was maybe released a little bit later. I could be wrong about that, but the album is like 57 minutes long, I think, and they probably could have cut out maybe these last 2 songs, for instance. They're good, they just don't quite jump out at me as much as the early stuff did. So they maybe could have cut those out. But this was the CD era, where it seemed like when CDs first really started to explode, everybody felt like they had to fill up as much time as they could on the albums. The days of 40 minutes where they were limited because of vinyl, those days were over. So people were just putting as much music as they wanted onto CDs. But there's still good songs. It's just when you have songs as amazing as Outshined and Jesus Christ Pose and all that stuff, you know, it's the songs sort of towards the end don't jump out at me quite as much. But this is overall a great heavy album in a kind of 70s Sabbath way for me, but then this slightly progressive element with the time signatures and the weird harmonies and Chris Cornell's vocals. Man, getting back into this really reminded me of what a top-notch, absolutely incredible singer he was. Rest in peace. Such a sad loss. And of course, Soundgarden would go on to become even more popular with their next 2 albums after this. But this is really kind of the start here for me, where it starts to come together for them, production wise, and you know, a little more focused with the songwriting and the sound and everything. So just a great album. If you haven't listened to it in a while, man, go back. Don't let the grunge title scare you away. I know in the world of metal and sometimes fans of 70s hard rock, they don't like grunge because it's sort of where it went after this in the mid 90s, which I didn't like any of that stuff. But this is just a good heavy album with great playing, great singing, great songwriting, great production. So check it out if you haven't in a long time. I know I hadn't checked it out in a while, and I really dug digging back into this. Let me know in the comments what you think of this album. What do you think of Soundgarden? What do you think of this album in particular? Birth Ritual. Have you heard that song? If you haven't, after you're done here, check it out. It's amazing, please. But let me know what you think of this particular album. I'm going to be doing some other bands from the whole Seattle thing, like Alice in Chains. But this one has a personal spot in my heart, man, because I just love this record. Super cool, super heavy. Let me know in the comments. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Till we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.